so the audience is accepting and willing to read it. Anyways, this was for Rice. These posters were folded and sent out like this. So the folds itself tell the story of the 4 letters. Also on the envelopes, we have the Rice already. So it's a whole story how you read this poster. And if you start with this segment and you fold it up to this segment, then you fold it up to that segment, and then you open the whole thing. The order of how you will open it when you get it and take it out of that envelope tells the story. We all agree that all lines on this posters are 100% straight, right? Anybody? Any concerns, or is it okay? So the poster works on a straight grid, but by placing the typography in these specific places, the whole this formation, or how do you say it, like the bending of the lines happens just by the placement of the letters. The name of this poster is Typographic Disillusion. It's for my summer program. So to give you that idea of the illusion or disillusion, I need a lot of letters. So I didn't come up with this visual illusion. It's something that you can find in books. It looks like this. But I researched a lot of visual illusions, and I said, like, this one, I want to try it out if I can fill it up with type. So the transformation happens by the play. These were my first sketches. The transformation happens by the placement of the letter forms or let's say outside of the square or inside of the square. And you can make it grow out or shrink in. I wanted both on the poster. So I wanted to go out and in and just go craziness. This was my first digital sketch. To make this poster, I need almost on every corner, I need a letter form. So to make this poster, I need something like 34 lines with each line between 9 and 13 letters. So I need to modify the content so I can design this poster. So there's no way I can make a good poster with bad writing, bad copy, or not matching copy for the target audience. So I need to rewrite what I want to say. Typographic, paranormal activity, Switzerland, supernatural, letterpress, plasma, no ignorance, misinformation, misconception, extract and breathe, analyze, discuss and think, hallucinations, Fata Morgana, total wizardry, daydreams, disorganization, foggy vision, unconsciousness, typographic, overstimulation, no confusion, and so on. You go on. But I have to come up with this. It's not that, it's for my program. I'm basically the client for this. But even if I'm working in a client situation, it's not always the clients that deliver me the best, it's not always the clients that deliver me the best copy. I have to write the copy so it fits. It fits the content and it fits the visual idea that I want to get. It's printed on mirror paper, so it's all glossy. You gotta see it at the end. For this poster, we are transferring the cut with acetone. So it's a digital print, and we transferred it with acetone to the linoleum because I need total precision in the transfer already. Other posters I normally transfer with just carbon copy paper. This one is transferred with acetone. We cut from two sides. This is real time. One-handed because I need to hold the camera in my other hand. Yeah, it hurts a little to watch that. And then it's just a one-color print, basically. There's also some small information on this print that you probably don't see from back there, but you can see it when you come closer at the end. And the print is straightforward. I mean, it's just, it needs special dryers to make it dry on this paper, but other than that, it's no rocket science. It's just a one-pass print, plus a second pass for the small information, which I think was 8-point metal type. Again, I cast this on the Ludlow. I'm going to skip this process here because I want to show you some more work. You'll find the whole video on my website. Plakate means letterpress posters, and it's the layout, as you see, is a question mark. It was an exhibition I had, a solo exhibition at Museum für Druckkunst in Leipzig, Germany, and I wanted to question the whole thing. Why would we do letterpress print in the year 2023? This was actually. So the whole thing is like, why do we even celebrate that? Why do we do a solo exhibition of just letterpress prints? And by going to that exhibition, seeing my work and seeing some of my processes, I would hope that people will understand and get an answer to that question. It's printed in a reduction lino cut. That means I start with a full block on black paper, and I print it, I think, 3 or 4 times with opaque white. Then I overprint that whole block with a split fountain. I have yellow here and I have white up here. So I print a gradient going from yellow to white. And then I reduce this form. That means I keep the form on the press, but I cut it into smaller pieces to then overprint the smaller segments of this layout. So I'm removing some of the pieces, and I use a cutter for that. I mean, I could use the laser cutter, which would be way more precise, but I'm interested in the imperfections of the cutter. So you see I have very small or very short gradients because each one of these little segments on the side and on top and bottom have gradients. And then I would bring back the other elements on the same block of wood. So why do I run? I mean, this is printed in, I think, 16 print runs, of which 9 were gradients or split fountains. The reason for that is in letterpress printing, the inks are not as opaque as they would be in silkscreen printing. So the only way of coloring the black paper is by running it through the press so many times. Also, the control of gloss. In silkscreen printing, you could use glossy ink or you could use matte ink. That doesn't exist in letterpress printing. So the gloss only comes from the amount of layers. And it doesn't help if I use more ink because I have to let it dry. So I use less ink, but I use more passes. We did something like 300 of these posters. Some of them were, or a lot of them were wheat pasted in the city. Others were hung up around the museum, and others again end up in collections like the Poster House, for example. So, and that's the full spectrum of what a poster can be. It can be this precious object that people collect and frame or put in an acid-free folder and hang it up at home, or put it in an archive, and others are out in the city and people tear them down or use a tagliner and write over them, and I like, or they fade in the weather. So I like this whole spectrum of what a poster can be. With something like this, we also did an animation of the poster, which is very, very slow. Because some of the posters were on displays. I mean, as a poster designer, I can't just say like I do only print, but it all starts with print. I would not design just an animation. There always has to be print involved. SFG is Schule für Gestaltung Basel, Basel School of Design, and it's been, I think in 2018 or so, they asked me if I could make a New Year's card poster for them. So what is the most basic idea of such a famous school of design, or what's the most basic idea of design? For me, it is the brush stroke, right? That's the simplest way. You just need a little bit of water and maybe some leaves or some hair. You can use it as a brush. So I wanted to reproduce the brush stroke in letterpress printing. So I'm using white glue, Elmer's glue, and I mean this is let me say this. This is the production that you're seeing here. Of course, there has been a design process that went before that. I can't just go to a client like Schule für Gestaltung Basel and say, like, this is what you're getting. Like, I have to make a design, I have to make a digital simulation, I have to make tests. Also, I have to guarantee that once I start this, I can print 850 posters for that. I can't just go back to them like, well, I could do 50 and I realized it didn't work. So what you're seeing here is after all those tests, this is the final production. You can still see I have several boards out. I think I had something like 4 boards out because I couldn't do corrections on that. I had to do it in one run, basically. You see there's more boards around here. I think this was the final board. Then once the glue was dry, I inked it up just with black ink so I could see where the glue is, and then I use a chisel to remove all the shape around that 3 letters SFG. I bring it to type height. And this block is basically plastic at that point, right? So I could easily print 850 posters with it, which I did. So that's the final poster. And it just says SFG wishes you. I also did envelopes for that. Detox was a poster I did for my typographic printing program, just as the typographic disillusion. The Detox was, I think, 2 years ago, and it was to detox toxic typography in public space, basically. If you see something that you believe this is toxic typography, whatever that is, but if you say like, this is bad typography or ugly, it's up to you, then you could cover that up with something that is very clean and light. So I printed this on transparent paper. You will see it in the video. It's a laser cut. So I'm laser cutting linoleum here. And it should make you a little nervous that the detox is site correct. Because it made me quite nervous to do that. Because anything that I normally want to print needs to be reversed, and you see it side correct here. But the reason for that is that I'm actually printing on the back of the transparent paper. See, it's reversed, but then when I print the second layer, I will flip the sheets over and print on the front. So the white on white was very tricky to get. I tried out, I had samples of 30 different white papers from the paper companies and tried out my opaque white. And I ordered the extra clean opaque white from the ink manufacturers, and it still wasn't white on white paper. But once I printed it on the transparent paper, it really looked white. And if you hang this on top of any colorful poster, it will look white. See, I flipped over the sheet, so the detox is on the back now, and I'm printing it with silver ink from the front. And the detox is actually glossy on the back and matte on the front. You have to see it in real life, so I'll pull that out for you after the talk. All right. You see, if I place the poster on a white surface, which I did for the photos, the detox actually looks gray. But if I lift it up or place it on a dark background, this looks completely white. And I'm going to show it to you in real life in a second. Tunnel is the name of a cultural club, music venue that's actually in a tunnel. So, or close to a tunnel. And the idea was that we make posters, or I said, like, let's make posters about that size. So 70 centimeters by 100 centimeters. Wouldn't that be a great size? You can hang them up. And then they said, yeah. We also want to send out these posters to our customers or our club members, and we can't send out such large posters. It's too expensive to send it out. It's also actually too large to handle them at home. You can't hang them on your fridge. It's actually too big. So I said, like, I understand, but I don't want to make it smaller. And they said, we need about a quarter of this size. So I said, let's try and use the same cuts, the same lino cuts to make both sizes. So we use this shape and we make the small posters with the same lino cuts. We make this beautiful choreography. I'm printing a split fountain here with 100% pink on one side of the rollers and 0 ink on the other side. So it's fading out to 0. I also did a second version of this gradient where I had the pink in the center. I'm not showing it in the video, but keep that in mind. I'm printing a second version of this gradient with pink in the center, white on top and bottom. So this is for the large posters. I can use the same gradient for the small posters. Then I cut the lino. I want this to be hand cut. I could easily cut this with a laser cutter. I have a laser cutter at the studio, no problem. But I like the perfect geometry that is actually a little bit off once you see it because it's hand cut. Here I'm printing the large posters with the tunnel shapes. And then I'm using the other gradients that I produced. So you see this, these are pink in the center, white at the top and the bottom. I'm cutting them in half. And then I only print the upper part of my lino cuts, but I'm reusing the same block. And you see, these are two small posters next to each other. You can see it just there and here. It's two posters next to each other. And then I'm cutting those down to quarters. And I finished these posters on a small press with the small information that is Ludlow type and headset wood type. So that's the small. And then I go ahead and finish the large ones on the large press. I'm going to skip this process here. So these are the large and the small posters. Now, the club or the client, they loved it. I mean, for them, it was great. But you give yourself the task for the next poster then, right? So, great idea, but how do I translate this into a next? So this was the second tunnel poster. You can see I'm using the bottom half here. You see it here. And again, the people that know this club, that know that venue, for them, if they see one U and two N's, they know it's the tunnel. So nobody's going to read N-U-E. It's clear that you have to read it in the tunnel shape. Also, I like to challenge the readers a tiny bit. I mean, in advertisement 20 years ago, people would say like, a poster, you have to understand it in a fraction of a second, otherwise it's not successful. In my opinion, this is total BS. Sorry. So you have to attract the target audience, and then they will read it. I mean, come on, there's not so many ways how you can read this poster. And especially if it's for a local club, people know the name of that club. The small ones get folded, the large ones get wheat pasted. The large ones also get numbered and signed because the large ones, they also sell. I also sell them, but the club also sells them to their members, and then they say, I want to support the club and I like the poster. So this is something that really starts working when you have several of them. That's the next funnel poster. So I'm using not even somewhere in between, but I'm not losing any paper. I'm using all the paper. And again, maybe you can't read tunnel on your if you're getting this by mail, or if you get that piece by mail, you might not be able to read tunnel. Once you go to the club to see the first show, you see wheat paste, and like, I mean, they know it because the tunnel is on there for sure. I think it's way more interesting than just a scaled down version of that poster. That's the most recent one, and I just used the left half. So that's all current 4 tunnel posters. There's going to be a next one in August. And I'm looking forward to the challenge. This is for Kunststipendien der Stadt Zürich, which means art stipends of the city of Zurich. Kunststipendien der Stadt Zürich. So they nominate, I think, 36 artists to possibly receive the stipends that year in 2021. So they're asking me, would you be willing to make a poster? And I said, like, yeah, great. Why do you ask me? I was like, well, they said, because we trust you that you can make these 36 names as big as possible. Because we've had other designers that were making a beautiful design and then put it on 36 names. But we know you work with typography, and we trust you to only use these 36 names. But we also need that information, and we also need the logo of the city of Zurich. I later found out that the city of Zurich is not allowing you to put the logo in the dead center of the poster. You can only place it here or there. And when I proposed it to them, they said like, I mean, not the city of Zurich, but the client said like, great, yeah, let's do this. And then later I got a phone call from the city of Zurich, and they said, like, are you the designer of this poster that we have out in the city now? I'm like, yeah. You cannot place the logo in the center. And I'm like, why not? It's the most prominent place. I mean, it's almost ironic. So I called back the client, the museum, and I said, like, hey, why didn't you tell me? He said, well, we knew it, we saw it, but we wanted you to do it anyway. I showed the digital version of this poster to the client, and I had no idea how I could produce this. I was really thinking this could be my first silkscreen print, because when I design a poster, I try not to restrict myself to what I think is possible with letterpress printing. I try to make the best design that I can come up with, and then I translate this to letterpress. But with this one, I was like, I'm not sure if I can do this. And the director of the museum said, great design, we want to do it. And you know what? We're just super curious to see how you are going to produce this with letterpress. So I'm like, shit, we got to do it somehow. So at the end, it was 23 passes on the press. Each poster, it was 400 posters. So yeah, a lot of work. The reason for that is we are using dark blue paper. And again, to cover that, I need 6 hits to cover that dark blue paper with the pink. And I do this for the upper half, the lower half, and the middle section. So that's 18 print runs already. And you can see the first print run of the upper, or it might be the lower half, I think it's the lower half of the poster. The first print is all merged together letter forms. It's impossible to read that. Only with the second hit, or actually the 7th hit, where I put the shadows on, then you can start to read this. So 2 hits I can do wet on wet, and then I have to let it dry normally a night, and then I can do another 2, and then another 2 just for the pink. And then the same shape, but with halftone dots, gets laser cut on the cutter. This takes about 8 hours to make half a poster on the cutter. So it's forever. Then I use shellac to seal these pixels because they could detach when I'm printing them. So I'm using shellac just to make sure to conserve the pixels of that MDF. And then this would be the 7th hit. You see the tiny pixels? The 7th and the 8th hit, we have to do it in teams. And we cannot switch roles on the same poster. Means Masha is printing with me, I'm lining it from the operator side. She could do this just as well as I can, but we cannot switch roles on the same posters because we will not hit it the same way. So she knows exactly where to put her hand, and I would do this so after like 100 we switch sides, but we finish the posters. See, she knows exactly. I only use 2 fingers. I only pull it over here. That's how they work. It looks like nothing, but it's really important that she keeps her hand there. I think that's a good one. This is a 4-point metal type, handset metal type. That's print run number 23. This poster is for Typoteca, which is a museum in Italy, actually a type museum, a letterpress museum in Italy. And they were celebrating their 25th anniversary. And for that, they were asking several designers and artists to make posters celebrating their 25th anniversary. And I wanted to symbolize that the first 25 years, or the first 24 years actually, passed by super fast. And you can possibly, I'm sure you can read the number 25, I'm not sure if you can read the upper half of it. So in the worst case, you're walking by, but then in the best case, you're looking back, because perspective will help you to read the numbers. I'll do it once more. And it's all hand-cut linoleum. The chair poster was, actually works in both directions, was design / art project where some architects and industrial designers wanted to make the most, or the new most produced chair worldwide. Because the most produced chair worldwide before the 1960s was the Toned Bentwood chair, which was originally manufactured in Austria and then exported all over the world in pieces, assembled all over the world, and sometimes even manufactured under license in many, many places. The most produced chair after the 1960s is this kind of chair. It's it's called Monoblock. It's a French chair. Cast from plastic. It takes 2.5 seconds to make it. It costs €2.50 to produce it, and it takes like 2 kilograms of plastic. And you can see this chair all over the world. I mean, not exactly this, but this kind of chair all over the world. You can see it. It's almost a piece of pollution in some places, right? You see it in the seas. But also you have to see this. If you have a history of hundreds of years of wooden chairs, and then in the 60s, for the first time, you see a white plastic chair. It's light, it's wobbly. Can I even sit on that thing? This is a UFO, right? It's this crazy piece. But of course, today it's really like, yeah, you've seen it. So they wanted to make a new project where they say, we use recycled PVC plastic that you can find all over this planet, also in the seas. We collect that, and we provide a freely available 3D printing file. And all you need is a 3D printer and some electricity. PVC you have in any country, and then you can basically make a new 3D printed chair. That should be the next most produced chair in the world. It's more a study project or an art project. They only made a prototype that is small. But at the moment when I get the briefing, I don't see the final chair. So I only work with the 2 chairs that are here. Neu was for a German design magazine, and they started a new design magazine in 2021. And I wanted to say, that's kind of cool, but also a little weird that you start a printed design magazine in the year 2021. So I wanted to say neu, which means new, but I was also printing the raglets and furniture for letterpress printing, which is the history of typography. So I wanted to combine the old and the new printing. They also made, I mean, this is the poster, but then they also made the cover of the magazine with the same design. It's all printed from raglets. I'm going to skip this video, I'm sorry, but I don't want to make it much longer. This was the next rice poster. Can you read rice? Yeah, conversation. printed with many gradients. And then for this one, we also postcards. I'm going to skip this part. The postcards have been printed on a Heidelberg press that I have at my studio. So this is way faster because I can basically run 10,000 cards, which I couldn't do on a proof press. So I'm doing this kind of work also, but only if it's my design. I don't do any job printing. I only produce my product. So also these have been letterpress printed. These were the postcards. I think I'm going to finish up with this poster. That's for Zurich Museum für Gestaltung, one of the most important design museums in Switzerland. And the task was for an exhibition called Repair Revolution. So the revolution of making industrial design and products that are mendable, not replaced or don't need replacement. So how do we rethink the way we make our products in life? And I wanted to show the tools that you need if you physically mend objects. But if you mend objects in a traditional way, you would have to make these tools black and heavy or silver, like really like heavy industry. You want to see the sweat. But here it's not about that. The revolution is more a revolution of rethinking. So that's why I use these almost esoteric gradients that almost hide the tools in a camouflage principle. The posters are, I say this in inches, 35 inches wide and 50 inches long, which is huge for letterpress printing. My press is very big, but it can't run the whole sheet in one run. See, the posters are actually too big for my press. So the trick I have to do is I run them upper half. I can print a little more than halfway in, and then I flip them around. See, I print the upper half, and then I print the lower half. And I want to hide the fact that I have to connect the motif. So the first print run, I print the gradient from top down. The second print run, I print the same gradient down up, and this will reverse the gradient. I have this little overlapping, which is not the nicest, so I'm gonna hide that later. Then I overprint the upper half with the tools. I overprint the lower half with the tools. So that's 4 print runs. Then I hide the overlapping with the needle and string, and I make the grip of the pliers. Do the same thing on the lower half. Then I start with type, and now I try to really hide, or there's not like this middle part which is empty. I really want to hide that. So I fill it up like this. So that is 13 print runs. Oh, sorry. That's 13 print runs on this poster. All right. So in my work, it's not just about the fact that these posters are letterpress printed. It's really, letterpress is my tool to produce my designs. I want to translate what's left of letterpress from, let's say, the 1970s and 80s. I want to translate that into the present with using new tools to produce contemporary designs. I could not make a living in Switzerland producing retro designs with letterpress printing. Nobody would buy this long term. So I have to make contemporary design that has to compete with any design that you see out in the real world. I'd like to thank Poster House and the team that I've been working with, Salvador. Yes, thank you very much for your help, of course, Angelina, and the rest of the team to make this possible. I'd also like to thank the Swiss Consulate because they helped us with this. There's also a workshop at CBA, Center for Book and Paper Art, this weekend. I'm not sure, but they might be still.
Are tickets still available?
Yeah, okay, we still have tickets. So, I think we'll do a few questions now, and then please join me at the table to see the work. You gotta see it live.
So I think I'm up here to monitor questions in case it gets too rowdy. Actually, I'm going to start because I actually had the great privilege of last summer doing the 2-week residency with Dafi and seeing this whole firsthand. As a non-designer, that was amazing. But I remember landing in Zurich, and one of the first things I noticed on my way to the hotel was this poster on the streets, and see it in various states of like freshly pasted versus something that had been bleached by the sun and rained on over multiple weeks. My question is, how do you go about convincing an institution to invest in something like this as their advertising campaign versus like a digital design that can be printed in 3 days?
Well, that's really an interesting one. I think the processes that go into making this design is what actually dictates or restricts the way I work. So sometimes it's a typeface that I only have in that site. So I have to work around that. And then, I mean, that's the thing why I say like the design will only look like this if I use these restrictions. But then the other thing is the quality, and that's something that you have to see on the table. Because the sharpness, the intensity, the brilliance of the colors, that's something that you can't do with digital prints. You could probably do good, or you can definitely do good quality silkscreen prints, but it's also different. Because I am the designer and the printer, I will not do any compromises, and if I do, I know what my vision was. I think I need to do another run. So I do a night shift and I print another run. So my clients they get an estimate before I even know what the design will look like, obviously. So I cannot then halfway say like, oh, I realized it's 23 print runs, so it's gonna be twice as expensive. No, I mean, I have to deal with the budget once the budget is fixed. So if I decide that I need 23 print runs, then I have to deal with the budget. And that makes a difference in quality, because very often if you work with a commercial company, then they will say it's not possible. I mean, we can't do it for that budget. And for me, it's also because I'm managing both budgets. I'm managing the budget of the production and the design together. Then I can sometimes say, design was straightforward, production. You know, this kind of deal I can only do because I print them myself.
Does anyone else? Yes.
You mentioned your typeface. Do you only use copyrighted, or do you use in the public domain, or do you design your own typeface?
I don't design my own typefaces. I modify faces for my posters. I mean, I use either way faces that I have physically, or I use digital faces that I bought licenses. But then I might laser cut or I might hand cut. So sometimes it's funny because if I decide that I need a new face, I might only need 10 letters for 2 words, you know? So can I afford a license of that face if I only use 10 letters? Because actually the preview file or the test file would be enough for me because I'm laser cutting it anyways. But because I believe in small businesses and I believe in being fair to our colleagues, the type designers, I buy the typeface then. But I also don't believe that great typography for posters, I need that many different faces. I could probably live with 15 faces on my hidden island. And probably I could reduce this down to 8 to make it work. Because for me, the semantic connection that I've been talking about before, the semantic connection between the topic I'm talking about and what you see does not rely on the face value. Because I'm designing a lot of my work analog, I very often also choose the face as the last thing. I might design proportions as a letter and then I cut something, and then I choose, once the layout is fixed, then I choose the face that I'm going to realize that. So, yeah, I think, does that answer your question?
Anyone else before we look at the posters? Okay. All right, everyone, come on over for introduction.